I am going to talk about current affairs not just as an information dump, but it's a logical process. Like I've explained in the previous classes about the carbon theme. Similarly, even for climate change, I've prepared one document and gave it to you so that you understand how to go about it. In this biodiversity, also, we are going to look at the current events that are majorly asked in newspapers. I mean, majorly covered in newspapers. Most of the questions that you get on biodiversity are directly picked from the Hindu or Indian Express. So all this index of topics that I'm going to give you, it will be very random if you don't understand the context of how or what on what aspects you have to focus on. We will be picking up one after the other news issues, and we will see based on the previous year's UPSC pattern how to prepare on this topic. That is the methodology which we are going to follow. So the first set of current affairs are about issues or news items which cover about the basics of biodiversity. There can be some species where we are not yet completely aware of the behavior of that species. And the reason why I am picking up that particular news item will also be explained. So that is the first set of issues. Second set of issues is about species adaptations and where those habitats are distributed, the spatial distribution aspect. Again, for this, the inspiration has been the previous year questions. Based on those previous year questions, I'm picking up themes from the Hindu and the Indian Express, and I'm going to teach you here on what to focus and what to leave out. Next is, the threats to the biodiversity and ecosystem disruptions. So questions are asked on this theme also. So whatever current affairs appear on this, you will be discussing those. We will be discussing those as well. And finally, conservation strategies and any technologies there. So this is the scope of the class today. I want you guys to focus on, have a pen and paper at your disposal. If you haven't brought it, I'm just giving you a minute to get the pen and paper. Just focus on whatever is being discussed, because if you're focusing on information, it can be overwhelming. This is way too random, way too many scientific names. That's not how you score marks in this part of the syllabus. So if you're a part of this lecture, you would rather spend the next 1 hour or 1.5 hours in such a way that you do minimal work to absorb this document after the class. So after every small article that we will be discussing, I'll be giving you a brief pause so that you can write down whatever you understood in your own language. You can use your mother tongue, you can use memes, you can use any other language or whatever works for you so that you understand once you read it. So this is how we are going about the topic. Any doubts?
No, sir.
I'm presuming that you all are sitting with a pen and a book. If you don't have it, you have 30 seconds of time to get it. We will begin after the 30 seconds. Okay, let's begin. We are talking about current affairs on the basics of biodiversity. And the first item that we're talking about is about fruit fly, Drosophila. Now, there are so many insects out there. Are you expected to remember all the insects? It's definitely not possible. But this fruit fly is very important to understand genetic evolution and human evolution. And in this context, you just have to recognize certain terms that are given in newspapers. And one such term is connectome. What is a connectome? It's basically a sort of a diagram. Like let's say, for example, if I have to give you an analogy, if you understand how our mind functions, you can basically predict thought patterns. So scientists mapped the entire brain of a fruit fly, creating a connectome. How to do it is very difficult for human beings. Like the pathways, learning pathways, etc., or how a human mind functions completely is not understood. So this is in the context of that process. If you're trying to understand humans better, we better mimic it on lower level organisms and try to understand it. What is the organism's name? Drosophila, commonly called as fruit fly. You might get a question here. So some facts that you have to remember. Why are we focusing on fruit flies? Because if you want to study neuroscience, this organism is recognized as one good model where we can closely associate or replicate something similar in human beings. Why this, out of all the insects out there, not relevant for UPSC? Let's not get there. What is a connectome? It's something that helps us understand the synaptic connections and neural pathways. This is all the more important in the context of AI and natural language programming. There is a concept called biomimicry. We are trying to observe what is happening in the nature and we are replicating that in the scientific world. Technology based on what we learn from nature. That's biomimicry, especially the biosphere aspect. So understanding this will give us insights into human brain functions and disorders. So what are the takeaways here? Name of the fly, that is fruit fly or Drosophila, concept of connectome, and how it is useful for neuroscience. 3 words, that's all. Write down. Write these 3 points. That's all you need to know. Fruit fly, connectome, human brain, neuroscience. This is the way you have to prepare your short notes. Moving on to the second thing. This is an article from the Hindu again in September 2024. Surviving in India's salt desert. This is about one creature or one organism. What is that? Let's see. We're talking about the Indian wild ass. Little Ran of Kutch was the only wild population of, please note this, wild. It is not captive. It is not talking about captive. We are talking only about the wild population. Little Ran of Kutch has a wild population of Indian wild ass. Does it mean that place is not supposed to have any sanctuary? That does not mean, like, in the future, if that is happening or if we already have it, don't get confused. Just because something is there in the wild doesn't mean that you should not hold that in captive in that region. Okay. Some facts remember. Khur, what is it? Indian wild ass. Just understand that. That's all. Where would you find it? Arid and saline desert. I don't have to explain why arid and saline, because Gujarat, Rajasthan border, those regions are arid and saline. The interesting fact is they've once shared habitats with cheetahs and lions, but now in that area they're not found. Can anyone tell me where do you find lions? A couple of days
Gir,
ago, our Prime
Gir
Minister,
National Park.
sorry?
Gir National Park.
Yes, Gir National Park. A couple of days ago, our Prime Minister visited one place in Gujarat, and there were a lot of images even in our media about, like, if he's feeding some lion cubs. Any guesses where that place is?
Sir, Vantara in Gujarat.
Yes. Okay. It's a conservation center. Okay. Moving on. So, on this topic, what kind of questions can be asked? Which region in India is the last habitat of the Indian wild ass? What does it mean by last habitat? Because this is the only place where it is found in wildlife. It's primarily found in which? So, UPSC can trap you. They can either mention, Great Ran of Kutch. It is there in Little Ran of Kutch, not Great Ran. It even they can mention Deccan Plateau or any arid region elsewhere. We don't have wild population. You might have captive population, but wild population is absent. That is what you need to know. Okay, what are the points to write down from this? It is called as Khur. It is found in arid and saline desert ecosystems. Once coexisted with cheetah and lion. Now it is surviving on its own. And you can also note down about Vantara. Make it quick. See, don't think that, anyway, I'll give you the PDF. Why should I note it down? If you can note it down, you will realize how much time you will save. You better save the time very efficiently when you're in this class. Okay, moving on. First ever multi-taxon global freshwater fauna assessment. Western Ghats as a hotspot of threatened species. So we are talking about, this is nothing new. This is not a great news per se for us. Western Ghats has a lot of endemic species. It's biodiverse region. It is one of the global hotspot. We know all of this. From this news item, what is it that you want to take away? Here, they mentioned about some important points which can be asked in mapping also. That's the reason I picked up this news. See, who carries out this? IUCN. This can be the first question that can be asked. So they can, change this. They can say IPCC or UNEP or Wildlife International or something else. All of these names appeared in UPSC previously. UPSC has a tendency of changing the name of the organizations that carry out this kind of surveys. So please note that it is IUCN. And the fact that this is the first time that is being conducted, it can be important. And it is freshwater fauna, not marine life. So there are so many things that you need to focus here on. First time ever, freshwater, and it is conducted by IUCN. All of this can be potential questions. In the same assessment, apart from Western Ghats, there are other places which were mentioned in the report. Lake Victoria, for example. I picked up Lake Victoria because this was asked in previous year UPSC questions in geography and other state exams also. And the fact that you need to remember is its shoreline is shared by 3 countries, maximum by Tanzania. You can write in the same order. Tanzania is greater than Uganda, is greater than Kenya. Lake Victoria is in Africa. Its shoreline is shared by 3 countries. This can be a point. Please note it down. Take a look at this. Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. See, you can get a lot of, and I forgot to tell you one very important thing. Every year, you will notice Congo. Every alternate year or once in 2 years or 3 years, some news about Congo. Congo is not only important in the current affairs because there's a lot of conflict going on in that region, it's strategically also very important. So it is a place where, a lot of tribes, civil war, conflict, and if you want to control African politics, Congo is very important. So there are a list of facts that you have to remember about Congo. We will be discussing that in a separate class in mapping based thing. But just remember, Congo shares its boundaries with certain other countries. Congo is very important. And in this context, these two lakes are very important, Lake Kivu and Lake Edward. Okay. Lake Kivu is in the boundary, it's sharing its, it is in the basins of these two. The basin is in two different countries, Congo and Rwanda. Please note this point. Even Lake Edward, Uganda and Congo. All of this can be important. Please pay attention. Lake Victoria, Lake Kivu, and Lake Edward. Okay. In the same report, in South America, there is another lake that is mentioned, Lake Titicaca. I already gave this Lake Titicaca in the document on mapping. This is not the first time that is appearing. Even in the previous years, it appeared in the news. Of course, it was not asked in UPSC yet. So, what is the point that you need to focus? It is between two countries. Which two countries? Peru and Bolivia. This is also not the most important point. The fascinating point about this entire thing is that it is the highest navigable lake in the entire world. What are the mountains in South America? Andes. This can be asked. And why is it in news? Because it is shrinking because of climate change. Historic low. The world's highest navigable lake in South America. It's called Lake Titicaca between Bolivia and Peru. It's facing some crisis. Why? Climate change. What are the mountains that you can find in that region? Andes. What are we talking about? Basically, we're talking about a report prepared by IUCN about the Western Ghats and the freshwater fauna and the threats they're facing. In the same report across the globe, IUCN also mentioned about two other places, Lake Victoria in Africa and Lake Titicaca in South America. There is an important civilization called Inca civilization. This is the place where that civilization was born. Remember, great civilizations are always born near water bodies. Indus Valley civilization is a case to the point. Okay. So these are the things that you need to know. And the third place that this report mentioned was about Sri Lanka's wet zone. So if you see the map of Sri Lanka here, this place, the southwest part, is almost similar to the Western Ghats. So when UNESCO is looking at the Man and Biosphere program in 1972, this is one of the global biodiversity hotspot also. Along with Western Ghats, this wet zone of Sri Lanka, there is a lot of continuity in terms of the kind of weather you will see. So all of that for our conservation purposes is considered like a hotspot. There is a lot of similarities in the flora and fauna and the kind of conditions that you would see in Western Ghats as well as this wet zone. One more thing, that's the point you need to know. Okay. A couple of days ago, just when our Prime Minister visited Vantara, PIB released one document about India's conservation efforts. It's like a compilation of all the important things that happened over the year. And in the entire document, this is the most important thing that you need to know. For the first time ever, see, whenever you have this keyword, first ever, is with respect to our conservation effort, it becomes extremely important. First ever satellite tagging of a Gangetic dolphin. Why is this significant? Why should we care? Okay. What's the context? There is a place, or rather, I would say there is a river called Kulsi River, which is a tributary of Brahmaputra. You would see that in the border between, this is the basin, complete basin, Assam, basically in Assam. So catchment area from Meghalaya area and Assam area, in this place, you would see this Kulsi River. Gangetic dolphins were found here. And the first ever satellite tagging of these dolphins was done here. What does this satellite tagging mean? You basically see, if you observe a Gangetic dolphin, after a point of time, you don't know if we are looking at the same dolphin or not. And this fact is very important because you would not know how many members of that species are there in that particular area. There's a danger that you might be double counting. What if you use a satellite image and lock? Okay, I am tracking the organism right now. Basically, you're invading their privacy. That's a different thing. Anyway, coming back. This is important for conservation efforts. What are the funding, funding agencies here? Obviously, the ministry. Then you have CAMPA and Wildlife Institute of India with Assam Forest Department. So every possible stakeholder is there. Okay. What are the purposes? Seasonal movements, migration patterns, habitat, etc. Basically, your dolphins are under surveillance now, not just humans. So, what are the features that you need to focus on? Am I expecting you to remember this name, scientific name? No. Important fact is the special trait of echolocation. They're nearly blind. They depend on sound and the echoes that are produced to move, just like bats. Where do you find them? Ganga, Brahmaputra, Meghna, Annapoli, and Sangu river systems. You just don't restrict them to Assam only. Animals don't have political boundaries. They have climatic boundaries, geographical boundaries. So they have land-based restrictions, not political restrictions. So you find them in India, Bangladesh, Nepal. They don't need visa from one place to another place to travel. So right, just be logical in your approach. Conservation status, it's not important to remember whether it is endangered, critically endangered, etc. If it is critically endangered, you can remember, but this is not. Okay. And the important fact is it is India's aquatic animal and it is declared that way in 2009. Apart from this, you need to know the various types of dolphins across the world. And I'm giving certain facts, not very important per se, but you need to know that the freshwater dolphin in India, the Gangetic dolphin, is not the only kind in the world. There are other kinds also. These are the ones. Irrawaddy dolphin. You also find Irrawaddy dolphin in India. This is also Indus Valley Indus River dolphin also. But the most important one is Gangetic dolphin because of the status that we gave it, national aquatic animal. Now we are focusing on a conservation model, just like Project Tiger. We are using the same structure to conserve this because of the status that we have given. We are following the model of Project Tiger, and this is a very latest one, started 5 years ago in 2020. So these are the things that you need to know. Echolocation, national aquatic animal of India, not the only dolphin species in the world, and we are following Project Tiger. Take 10 seconds, you can write this down. Where would you find the first sanctuary for dolphins in India? In Bihar, Vikramshila. One more important point. Okay, moving on. See, recently, as in from the past 3-4 years, there's a debate on developing Andaman and Nicobar Islands as a strategic hub, both for our security purposes or trade purposes. But this is closer to equator, and when you are close to equator, it's obvious that the biodiversity will be very high. When that is the case, do you have enough environmental impact assessment and other social audits in place to ensure that the local population as well as the flora and fauna are not disturbed? It is in this context you need to know some endangered species of the Nicobar Islands. Again, here I'm not expecting you to remember every name, etc. But if you have to guess intelligently and smartly, at least you need to be in a position to recognize. So, whatever you get from the Hindu, if you just recognize them, they are not going to be like a random bouncer or a surprise. And that is the reason I'm asking all this. You may or may not have this information in other materials, but it is immaterial if you can't remember it. I'm not expecting you to remember every detail. You need to have a certain logic. We will focus on those logics in our class. That's why it is important to focus and listen to what we are discussing. Okay. In this entire thing, the most important trend that you need to focus is Nicobar Islands have something very unique. A lot of species are endemic to that region, meaning if they're disappearing from Nicobar, they practically vanish from entire face of the earth. That's the danger. There is no replacement for the threats that they're facing. Like if they're washed out from this region, you can't have them again, and they have a very specific ecological role. No amount of efforts or science can replace a nature-based solution. So it is important to understand this. Okay. And there are a lot of untouched tribes, Jarwa, Onge. If these indigenous tribes face a threat of existence, again, it's a humanitarian crisis. Now, see, UPSC is obviously not going to ask you, is Nicobar megapod endemic to that area or not? If it is asking, it's a direct no-brainer because the name itself says that it is a endemic species. So you don't have to remember Nicobar tree shrew, Nicobar serpent, Nicobari pig. All these are not important. The names are not important. But what do they do? Like, why is it considered to be so special? Now, this megapod, if you disturb the nesting places of that bird, they will just abandon it. And that is a threat to their existence. And then you have tree shrew. Okay. These are related to primates. What are primates, etc.? We'll be discussing that in the class today as well. That is one more point. And Nicobar serpent eagle. This is a kind of an eagle. Again, this is endemic to Nicobar, smallest eagle ever known. That's the point you need to know. Nicobari pig is important for the local communities. Largest wild mammal in Nicobar. Not really important per se, but since this is given in the newspaper articles, I just listed it down. But the most ignored one is the saltwater crocodile, which is the apex predator. Like if you want to maintain balance in that ecosystem, you need to have a predator. Otherwise, if there is a herbivore in that system, they continuously feed on, they reproduce and they continuously feed on the vegetation in that region, which will cause an imbalance. So, as a system, to fix that problem, every ecosystem will have a predator, and that predator is saltwater crocodile. They will face an extinction. So, you're seeing, if you look at the entire system, it's well organized. Every species has its own role, and once human beings enter there, we're actually disrupting the entire ecological system. That's the danger. Where else will you find saltwater crocodile in India? This can be a question. So you do your research here. Just be curious about where will you find saltwater crocodile. I can give you the answer, but if you are curious and if you search for it, it is going to stick in your mind. Just note this task down. Then you have the Omura's whale. You don't have data on this actually, but this whale is sighted only in this region. Despite the lack of data on this, instead of trying to study more about this, we are going ahead with the project without a proper environmental impact assessment. That can also be a question. Next up, in Odisha, you will see some black tigers, famous black tigers. And state government, because this is a rare thing, they're trying to create a safari and raise some revenue there. That's the context. Simlipal, Odisha's Simlipal Tiger Reserve. Can anyone tell me if you are following my channel regularly? I just want to know. I'm just curious if someone is reading the channel or also the documents that I'm giving you. What is the most famous tree here in Simlipal? Okay, I guess some of you are already searching it on Google.
Sir, is it red silk cotton?
Sorry?
Red silk cotton trees?
Yeah, it's also called
I'm not sure.
Pallas tree. You know the famous Battle of Plassey? It's basically because of the Pallas tree in that region. Simlipal has a lot of Pallas tree. The Pal here is related to Palash. Okay. And Battle of Plassey, because the Britishers couldn't pronounce it, they made Palash as Plassey. So that region in Bihar also had, like, the point that I'm trying to make is trees, flora and fauna do not have political boundaries. Just because you say that they're found in only in Odisha, it doesn't mean they can't be found in Bihar. Palash trees are also found in Bihar, and that region had a lot of Palash trees, and that's the reason why it's called Battle of Plassey. Simlipal. Anyway, coming back. Okay. So there is a rare black tiger, genetic variant of the Bengal tiger. Okay. So why is this black tiger found, or what is the reason behind it? There's a mechanism called melanism. Melanin is produced and this will make the skin darker. It's present even in human beings. Pseudo-melanism is where tiger stripes are denser and more interspersed, making the tiger appear darker but not fully black. There is a gene, specific gene. I don't think UPSC will expect you to remember this, but just in case, this specific gene is affecting the coat pattern only. And that's the reason it is called pseudo-melanism. They are not actually melanistic tigers, what you find in Odisha. Some yellow part is also retained by these tigers. And since these are rare, Odisha government is planning a safari. What are the mistakes that most people do? They think that Simlipal is a home for melanistic leopards. No, pseudo-melanistic tigers, not leopards. Are leopards found in India? What are the big cats? I gave you in your previous document. How many of you studied? Okay, you can go through the previous documents. I've already given it there. Okay, so this is the next item that we need to focus on. There is one ant which is moving around using polarized moonlight. Now, why are we studying all this random stuff? You might be wondering. Because UPSC has a tendency to ask questions on behavioral patterns. So many insects use the moon position to navigate in the dark night. So recently, scientists found two nocturnal. What do you mean by nocturnal?
Awake in the night.
Yeah, they are active during the nights. They're active during the nights. So obviously, since they're active in the night, that is why they're using the moon position. It's obvious, right? So the thing is, whenever there are clouds, whenever there are, the new moon phase, when the light is dim, these animals have some trouble. But unlike the normal insects, these two bull ant species, even the polarized moonlight, even in the dimmer version of that light, they're able to move, which gives us new insights on animal behavior. This can be a question. That's the reason. And why is it important? Because I told you, right, whenever there is a first ever keyword, it can be asked in UPSC. Just recognizing it will not harm you, right? So just being aware of it will not harm you. This is the fact. Is this the first insect or first animal? No, there is already one, which is dung beetle. So even when the moon is not directly visible, ants can still determine where they are and move accordingly. Animal navigation patterns have been a theme that UPSC had been picking on, and that's the reason I'm giving you this point. Moving on. Now, we are talking about the second set of current affairs, species, adaptations, and the habitats there. This article is again picked from the Hindu, very recent one. How does Antarctica's only native insect species survive extreme weather? Here, you have to remember these facts. Firstly, the name of the organism. Please write it down. Not the scientific name, but the common name, Antarctic midge. Okay, let's see. How does it survive? You know that in Antarctica there is 6 months of harsh weather and 6 months of sunlight. To survive in that stage, in year one, let's say there are two phases for this. Basically, just like how larger animals go into hibernation, the smaller insects kind of stop their life activity. That's their way to adapt so that they don't die. They have that ability to stop their life activity inside their body. So there is a pre-programmed dormancy at a fixed time in the life cycle. So if weather changes, if climatic events change the weather patterns of that region, this pre-programmed program will not work anymore, which will threaten their existence. That's the point you need to understand. Most insects in temperate regions use facultative diapause, meaning it is triggered by an environment. But obligate diapause is rare. What does this obligate diapause mean? It is pre-programmed, and that's the reason why this current affairs becomes very important. For centuries, decades, centuries, millennia, thousands of millions of years ago, Antarctica has always been that region where it is cold from the ice age itself, even before the ice age probably. And that is the reason in the his evolution you would see that such pre-programmed adaptative mechanisms are there. That is changing. What was not possible in millions of years ago, humans being started to do that from 1750s. That is the important take. Okay, next up, loggerhead turtles. They use geomagnetic field to navigate large distances. Again, this is a news picked up from the Hindu. What is this magnetoreception? They can learn, remember, associate magnetic fields with food. See, just like how there is a term picked up from newspaper last year, like beetle dance or something, right? How honeybees try to gather the food, give signal to the rest of the bees, and how the queen bee leads. There was a question on this. So here we're talking about something called turtle dance. Loggerhead turtles use geomagnetism to sense the direction of the food and perform something called turtle dance. Okay, this will give you an idea of the feeding and breeding sites after long migrations. And here you need to understand some important facts. These are marine. Turtles are always mostly water loving. If you take a look at their flaps, or tortoises have feet because they are terrestrial. That is, they live on land. But when it comes to turtles, they have flaps, they swim. If you watch this movie, Finding Nemo, you would notice that there is a giant tortoise which is swimming and helping the protagonist. That it's basically marine reptiles. Here, there is a important, interesting fact: sexual dimorphism. Just like in human beings, how we can differentiate male and female, even in these loggerhead turtles, we can differentiate based on physiology, male and female turtles. They're found in Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, and Mediterranean Sea. Basically, they travel, they're globetrotters. So they move from one place to another, so they migrate from one place to another to survive. That's their way to adapt. And because that is the case, they are hunted. And that's the reason international trade is banned. Some important points, some mistakes that people do. Loggerhead turtles, are they herbivorous? Obviously not. They have to eat whatever they get since they are swimming in deep oceans. They're omnivorous, not just plant eaters. They eat both, whatever they get. Magnetoreception. Is this unique to turtles? No. Other species also have it. So don't make that mistake that this is only for this species. Just because it is cited, just because it is listed in sites, doesn't mean it is the most critically endangered species. It can vary from place to place. IUCN, because this is a globetrotter, it moves from one place to another. In certain areas, it can be critically endangered, or it depends on the regional conditions and the protection that these, let's say, for example, if they come to a place for nesting or mating, if people come and disturb that region, obviously they will, just vanish from that place. This is exactly what happened in Mumbai. Olive literary turtles came to Mumbai. Usually, we don't associate olive literary turtles with Mumbai. You mostly find them in Rushikulya and Orissa part. Okay. But when these turtles came to Juhu Beach in Mumbai, people started to hit them on their shells. They got scared and they left. So, if you give a critically endangered status there, people will stop doing this kind. I mean, they will be restrained from doing this kind of activities. So don't make the mistake that just because it is Appendix 1, the IUCN status should definitely be critically endangered. Need not be. If it is definitely that way, it's a coincidence, but it is not a rule that every endangered species, every Appendix 1 species should be critically endangered. Other way can be true. Now, another important zebrafish. They're able to repair damaged hearts. Can human beings, if the heart muscle fails, can we repair our human body? Can it repair it on itself? No. But if you learn from zebrafish how they're able to do it, probably it can help us in medical devices. Again, this is biomimicry. So this zebrafish has a unique regenerative ability, unlike human beings. Within 60 days, if something happens to that heart, it will completely restore the heart function. There is one protein called HMGA1 protein. Not expecting you to remember the protein name, etc. But remember that proteins are so important that every life activity and enzymatic activity or any catalyst, they're dependent on proteins. Proteins are made of amino acids. And not every amino acid is produced by our body. We get them through food. That's why there are non-essential amino acids and essential amino acids. Okay. So this protein is something like it removes the roadblocks on chromatin, unlocking dormant genes for regeneration. In easy language, आसान भाषा में अगर बोलूं, तो this protein will ensure that whatever is stopping the body to repair, it will remove that roadblock. Do human beings have it? Yes, during embryonic development, but this is turned off in adulthood. Okay, if we want to experiment on human bodies on how this will react, we have to carry out certain experiments. So recently there was an experiment on mice. What happened? So they applied this protein to damaged mouse hearts. What happened? Without any side effects, it was repaired. So if we can apply this in human beings also, maybe we'll have some breakthrough in the future. That's the reason it is important. Marine heat wave killed 4 million Alaska seabirds. It's a very big event. 4 million, 40 lakhs. Extreme climatic events are harmful. We all know that. What are the seabirds? This is the name. Muri seabirds. Murray or Muri, whatever you can. It's a common noun or proper noun. You can call it whatever you want. What is the most important thing that you need to know? We spoke about a concept called climate tipping point. So seabird decline is an impact of the fact that we are moving towards a climate tipping point. Please remember that. Normal confusions that people have when we are talking about marine heat waves, is it like a temporary increase in the sea surface temperature? No, this is not a regular temperature fluctuation. If it is a temporary fluctuation, the systems are good enough to take care of themselves, but these are prolonged and intense events that happen to continue over a period of time, and they keep on getting worse and worse. Just because one species of bird is affected, not every bird is equally impacted. Don't try to generalize that. One more point. An ecosystem shift doesn't, there is no evidence that population will bounce back immediately just like that after this heat wave event is over. That's what we would assume, right? If a temporary flood occurs in a system, if we build it back better, everything is going to be normal. Unfortunately, in this case, that's not the thing. Okay, just a minute. Like if you want to note it down, just note it down. This is an important fact. Okay, next up, we are talking about sea otters in California. See, invasive alien species. This is a very important topic. In California, there is an invasive alien species called green crab. This green crab is occupying the entire region, and it is making the life difficult for other species. That's what invasive alien species generally do. It was introduced into the waters of that region through ballast because of ships that brought water along with it. In that water, there were green crabs, and they came and occupied that region's ecology. When you have this kind of naturally induced problems. Invasive alien species is not something that is directly man-made. Humans definitely have influence, but it's not like we are breeding them there. We have bought them, but we are not breeding them. So a technological innovation cannot address this problem. We have to address this through nature-based solutions only. And it is in this context you need to know the concept of ecosystem engineers. There are certain species, look at the beauty of the nature and the design therein. There are certain species which take care of this concept called homeostasis. We already discussed this in the previous class. It's nature is always about balance. If we want to maintain that equilibrium, we have to respect the individual roles of that stakeholders. In this case, sea otters, why is it important? Because they have a peculiar nature. This peculiar nature is they eat a lot of food to keep themselves warm and to survive. Otherwise, they just die. And luckily for them, green crabs are a very good food for them. So how can UPSC ask a lot of questions on this? There can be a prelims question on the natural predation as an invasive species control mechanism, nature-based solutions, like I told you. Then you can have kelp forests, because this is the region where kelp forests. In this region, you will have this kelp forest where you will see this sea otters. They're not just mechanisms of carbon sequestration. In the previous class, we have discussed on the theme of carbon. Whatever you take in should be put back into the system, and nature has a way to do it. Carbon sinks. So these forests are like carbon sinks, and marine sinks are much more powerful than the land-based. We already discussed that. So these green crabs are also, disrupting the kelp forest. So it's creating that balance again. So there is a reserve in California, a place called Elkhorn Slough Reserve. Not important to remember the name, but just remember that location, California. You can go through the maps. So sea otters are consuming almost 1 lakh green crabs every year. So this is keeping the balance there, because they're non-stop. The green crabs are consuming a lot of vegetation in that region. Human eradication is not possible. So we introduced sea otters there. They took care of themselves. One important point that you need to know here is there are many organisms like whale, seals. They have a lot of fat. This fat will keep them warm. Sea otters, the fact they're in the sea, they also become cold, right? So they want to keep themselves warm. Unlike these whales and seals, which have a lot of fat, they don't have it. They have very high metabolism, and body produces a lot of heat. So when you are producing a lot of heat, you need a lot of food. They eat almost 25% of their body weight daily. They're voracious predators, and that's the reason they are very successful in that. That's the beauty of nature. What is happening because of this? Even the kelp forests are protected. Not just the green crabs, they also hunt urchins. They also feed on the kelp forest. There is a balance maintained. So with one introduction of a nature-based solution, we are having conservation of kelp forests, which is preserving the carbon sinks role, and then you also have the balance to address this invasive alien species. Okay, important fact: green crabs are not native to US. It can be a trap. It's an invasive alien species. Kelp forests are not only carbon sinks, but they're also ecosystem providers. Like a lot of organisms survive there. Need to remember this fact. Okay. This is the most interesting and the most challenging part for a lot of students. In the last few years, a lot of questions are appearing on monkeys, primates, apes, etc., etc. Let me take this news item as an example or a context for expecting the next question. So last year we have had questions on bonobos. We'll see what a bonobos is, what is a langur. You must have heard these terms in all the environment textbooks, but unless and until you have a proper structure, you can't remember any of this. Okay, so using this news item as a cue, let me help you explain through a structure how to remember all the species and where they are found in India. It can help you logically guess certain questions. Now, we are talking about something called primates. Basically, when you think of primates, these are like the early ancestors of human beings. Any anthropology students here? I don't want to ask any anthropology. Most of you guys are probably having anthropology. So you guys might be knowing this better. Consider this like a quick revision of this topic. So, if you take a look at the species, primates especially, they have certain characteristics. Look at this opposable thumb. This is the thumb. What do you mean by opposable thumb? You are able to hold something because of this. If you realize the beauty of human anatomy, you are able to hold something, you're able to move something, and that has given a lot of power in evolution. Like, we take things for granted. The fact that I'm holding this pen right now, the fact that I'm able to write with it, it's a sign of intelligence and evolution. It all began with primates, opposable thumbs, forward facing eyes. Look at a horse. Do you think it will look straight? They have opposite directions, like they're placed in opposite directions. Primates, they're closest to the human beings. They can look straight. They're forward facing eyes and large brains. As you move from a lower order primate to a higher order ape and then human being, you will notice that our cranial capacities, cranium means the structure which holds our brain, our capacity to think gets larger and larger, and it is a sign of intelligence and sophistication. And then whenever there are more number of intelligent beings, you would see social structures coming into existence. Just like how human beings live in societies, those apes or those closer to human beings like chimpanzees, which hold 99% of the same DNA as us, they also have certain social structures. They also have ways to settle conflicts. They'll fight. I'm not talking about the Planet of the Apes movie. It's actually true. It's not completely fiction either. They do have emotions, they do have intelligence. There are a lot of studies on this. And because UPSC is asking a lot of questions on this, I'm trying to explain this in detail. Look at this. Anthropology students, this is also a case study for you guys. You have a topic in Anthro where they're talking about religion, and there is a concept of totemism. You have totems like cult symbols. In primitive times, baboons in African regions, like they're considered to be, they're revered like as if they're gods. As and when human beings started to settle down into agriculture, they're considered nuisance. And as the societies evolved today, the reason why this news is so viral across the world is the fact that little children tried to kill, I mean, not tried, they actually killed a lot of baboons, citing that they are bad omen, superstition. Do we need to address this? Definitely, because we are disturbing the equilibrium of this world. We need to educate ourselves. And it's not happening just in South Africa, it's happening even in our country. India has only one ape called the Hulak gibbon in Assam. We'll get back to that. But we only have one species. We're doing nothing to conserve it. It's a problem. Okay, let me come back to that structure that I'm talking about. Primates have this. I'm not expecting you to remember any names and scientific terminology. Okay, so primates are divided into Strepsirrhini and, as you can see here, Haflorini. I'm not expecting you to remember the names. Again, I'm clarifying. So just consider that there are two branches. The first branch has something called lemurs and lorises. Are they found in India? This is the question you need to ask. Yes, they are found in India. There is something called Mysore loris. There is something called slender loris. This is found in Madagascar. You will see this continuously in news. Please understand, this is very important. The lemurs and lorises, they are very important. They're usually found in Africa. And if you have to understand this like a story, these are like the grandparents of civilization, the oldest living on trees. Where what is the habitat? Trees. Look at this. This is loris. This is lemur. Take a look at them. They have strong nose, front-facing eyes, and they have a tail. But they're predominantly living on trees. And the second category of primate, like I told you, primates are divided into 1 and 2. This second one is Haplorini. Again, this is divided into New World monkeys and Old World monkeys, and then apes, which is a further evolution. Let's get back to that. So, in this division, you are looking at monkeys, New World monkeys. Monkey as a term essentially means that it has a tail. Please remember this. This is very important. In evolution, if you have to recognize a monkey, it is expected to have a tail. Okay. This New World monkeys, the classification says that, Old World and New World. This is from a Western standpoint. Old world means Africa is considered to be the birthplace of civilization, right? So it's considered old world. New world because Christopher Columbus discovered that entire Americas as late as 1500s. So to the Western world, it's as if that America didn't exist before that. So they gave this nomenclature of New World monkeys. So South American primates are the New World monkeys. How are they defined? Flat noses, prehensile tails. They use their tail to swing for grabbing. Okay. And they're mostly arboreal, meaning they can only live on trees. If the trees are gone, they have very difficult time surviving. And that's the reason you can find them in Amazon forests predominantly. The second classification is Old World monkeys. The difference between New World monkeys and the Old World monkeys is the fact that they can survive even on land. They're slightly more evolved. So what are the features? They have tails. I'm again, for simplifying things for you, I'm dividing this Catarrhini or old world monkeys into two different categories. Let's call them the tail gang and the tailless elites, just for our own understanding. The tail gang, like baboons, langurs, macaques. Macaques are the usual monkeys that we find here, right? Most of them. They have tails, but they walk on all the four quadrupeds. So quadrupeds. These are the features. So you might get a lot of questions. Langurs are very important for UPSC. Where do you find langurs? All across the country. Macaques, even probably our day-to-day activities, we'll see a lot of macaques. They're the most adaptable ones. And then you have, after the old world monkeys, you have apes. Humans are also apes. The most evolved ape is human being. Let's call them the tailless elites. They don't have tails, but they have bigger brains and more complex societies. Now you might be wondering, if apes are evolved, does it mean that they can always live on land? Does it mean that they will organize themselves as society? Not every ape will live like that. You have further division of apes into lesser apes and greater apes. Here is where another important question comes. Lesser apes. This is the most important question which I'm expecting this year. Either you'll have question on langurs or apes. If it comes to this, what are we talking about? Gibbons. Who love gibbons? Just because they are apes, just because they don't have tails, doesn't mean they can't live on trees. They're great at swinging through trees, and if you cut down the trees in that region, even recently there is an oil exploration project that was sanctioned by the central government, which is again threatening the existence of this species. Where will you find them? This is a probable question. Ulongapar Gibbon Sanctuary. Where is it? Assam. India's only gibbon sanctuary, because this is the only place where you will find them, like Hula gibbon. And this is the only ape species which we are failing to conserve. Then we come to the greater apes. So you can get a lot of questions from this. You have gorillas, chimpanzees, and the cool dude here called bonobos. Look how it's chilling, like it's very relaxed. Gorillas, the gentle giants, as you know, King Kong. A lot of movies were made on this. Chimpanzees, we share 98 to 99% of DNA with chimpanzees, our closest relatives in terms of evolution. And then you have bonobos. They are the peaceful diplomats. Why are they called the peaceful diplomats? Because the way they deal with conflicts. Like I told you, as our cranial capacities increase, apes organize themselves into society. Two important facts that you need to know is the behavior of chimpanzees versus bonobos. These cool dudes are diplomatic. They sit, talk, they deal stuff through DNA, dialogue, negotiation, action. Of course, we don't understand their dialogues, but they do. So they have social bonding, grooming, and physical affections to diffuse these tensions, and they're very peaceful. And that's the reason it is chilling like this. And then we have the so-called most advanced of all, and we fail to learn from our cousins, bonobos, human beings, Homo sapiens. And we choose to learn from chimpanzees because chimpanzees also resolve conflicts through dominance and violence. Bro choose violence before anything else. And that's the reason we are human beings. What are the takeaways from this entire discussion? What is the only ape who like gibbon? Where would you find them? Assam. Endangered primates. Like I told you, macaque and langurs. These are the points that you need to focus on. What are the important species? This one. You can get questions on these four species. Some traps that UPSC can learn. Orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees are not found in India naturally. Please note this point. They are not found. They can be held captively, but naturally, no, they are not found. Are hula gibbons monkeys? No, they are apes. They don't have a tail. Tail is absent. They're much more evolved. Monkeys will always have tails. Please remember that. Any doubts here on this topic? This is a very important topic. Okay. Now let's move to the next topic, that is threats to biodiversity and ecosystem disruptions. See, these are very common topics. Nothing much to explain here. I'll be a bit quicker here. Okay. So, you know, olive literary turtles. All these facts can be understood if you just read it. What I'll be giving this document to you, but what is the most important takeaway is this. The quick rule that you need to focus on. Turtles are mostly water lovers. They come to the shore only for breeding season, nesting, etc. And that's why olive literary turtles visit these places. Tortoises are mostly land dwellers. And the most important one is star tortoise. Okay. Again, like I was discussing, right? Mumbai was supposed to have this olive ridley turtle nesting season, but thanks to Mumbaikars the curious Mumbaikars who wanted to knock the shells of olive ridley turtles and disturb them, they just left that place. Now, Indian star tortoise conservation prospects. So this is the tortoise that we're talking about. It's It's not huge, it's small. It's herbivores. Remember, most of the tortoises are herbivores because they feed on leaves, fruits, flowers. They're residing on land. They can afford to be herbivores. It's endemic to Indian subcontinent. Indian subcontinent, not India. Please remember, species does not have political boundaries. They have geographical boundaries only, landscape based boundaries only. They are found throughout Indian subcontinent. Of course, since it is so widely protected, this is Schedule 1 of Wildlife Protection Act. And also, since the trade is banned, it is in CITES Appendix 1. Next topic, the age-old topic of Great Indian Bustard. I don't think there's much to discuss here because I've already given these topics elsewhere as well. Okay. So now we are talking about Kashmir Hangul. Here we are talking about a specific term called rutting. Mating season is also called rutting season. For if you get a question on this, don't get confused. Where will you find them? Dachigam National Park in Jammu and Kashmir. This is given in many standard textbooks. What is the takeaway for us? Please remember these points. Sorry, this point. Only surviving species of red deer in India. It is not just any other deer, it's a red deer. They are not found outside India. It's endemic to Kashmir. They're not a common deer species because it's a red deer. And main threat is not poaching, but habitat loss and climate change. Because every endemic species will face threat here. Random news, not so important, but just in case if you have to know, I'm giving this. Namibia is planning to kill hundreds of its animals for meat because they're starving. Governments there are not able to provide enough food security issue. In this case, even you would notice that hippopotamus, rhinos, elephants, even these are targeted. Okay, these facts that I'm giving can be important, not really important, that important, but just in case. There was a couple of years ago, there was a question on which place is facing acute food security problem. Madagascar was asked in probably NDA or some other exam of UPSC. In that context, I'm giving this question. Okay. Another important point is Namdafa Tiger Reserve. Where is it? Arunachal Pradesh. For the first time in 12 years, elephant was recorded there. What is the most important point? You can see here, northernmost lowland evergreen rainforest in the world. Just note this point. It's enough. Now, Ratapani in Madhya Pradesh. This is declared as a tiger reserve. In this context, what do you need to know? First, you need to know what is a tiger reserve. Tiger Reserve is a conservation area. You know this taught in many classes. It will have a core area, buffer area, and almost 2.3% of India's geographical area is covered under this. How is it created? What is the role of state government? A lot of people get confused here, so this is important. The process begins with a state government's proposal. It's not initiated by the center. State government will identify a viable tiger habitat. Then they will send the proposal to NTCA, National Tiger Conservative Authority, and the ministry will review it. And if it's approved, state government will notify. That's the reason it is in concurrent list, wildlife protection. Can a tiger reserve be denotified? No. As per this section, it's not important to remember the section, but there is a provision in the act. Just understand that no state government can denotify a tiger reserve unless approved by both National Tiger Conservative Authority and National Board for Wildlife. They are not created by NTCA. State government will create it. It will initiate the process and it will notify it. But approval from this is mandatory. Next up, squid. See, India is, especially the coastal areas, are famous for their marine food. And if we understand them better, maybe the productivity will be improved. So in that bid, we are trying to understand the blueprint of this species, Indian squid. Here, you need to know about the classification, like group of animals called molluscans. If you know the taxonomy, if you're a doctor or if you're someone good at biology, great. If you're not good at it, it's okay, ignore. There is a class of animals called molluscans. And I want you to understand that they have a certain category of animals which are smart. They survive better. And they can be further divided into coeloids and nautiloids. Okay. So you have octopus, squid, cuttlefish, which have soft body. They don't have an external shell. They swim like they are mobile. Then you consider the nautiloids. They're considered like the living fossil. They have a shell and they move like a submarine, very slow and very secretive. If you want to know the unique traits, they're having highly evolved nervous system. They can camouflage. That's the reason they're called the living fossil and compared to submarine. Okay. Most important points that you need to know: squid, octopus, cuttlefish. These are not fish. They are molluscans. I mean, it's rare that you'll get a direct question whether this is molluscan or a fish or invertebrate. It's rare, but if you have to take a logical guess, this point can help you indirectly. Okay. That's all you need to know. Final topic, very important topic, difficult to pronounce for most of us, but let's understand what this is. Zoo pharmacognosy. What does it mean? A lot of animals try to medicate themselves when they are sick. How are they able to know that? Is it like they learn that pattern, or is it pre-programmed? It's a part of the evolution. This is what we are trying to understand better. And the study of that is zoo pharmacognosy. It's self-medication behavior observed in animals. Whenever something is wrong, they consume this. So, as a part of this, Hindu published a lot of facts. So, we are trying to know those facts only. That's all. Primates eat leaves to kill intestinal parasites. It's very obvious. Elephants consume tree barks to induce labor. This is a very important point. Elephants and their behavior was asked previously. So you can expect some question here. Parrots and macaws eat clay to neutralize toxins. So whatever is available in their vicinity, they use that material to cure themselves. Dogs and cats eat grass. I mean, I personally found it very curious. I saw a dog eating grass on the road. When I was a child, I first observed this and I was like, why is this eating? Like, it was having an upset stomach. That's what I've realized after a lot of time. Then you have Sumatran orangutan, which is, eating berberine. Even today, this compound berberine is very significant for controlling diabetes, apparently. So this can also be an important point. And finally, Neanderthals. We were talking about apes, and we said that human beings are the most evolved species. If you're an anthropology student, you would know what am I talking about. But for others, Neanderthals were just like human beings, but much more larger. In today's Europe, where you have this Caucasus Mountains, they're called Caucasians. They had larger cranial capacities than human beings or Homo sapiens, and they thrived in that time. But because of lack of availability of food and because they were large, their energy demands were much higher. During the Ice Age, they perished because they did not have enough food. They consumed chamomile to fight off infections. How many of you are familiar with chamomile tea? You would if you crack the exam, definitely. Anyway, so this behavior is not just pertinent to primates only. It is visible in all the animals. It's not just a learned behavior. And it is linked to ethnic sciences. Like we have a traditional knowledge digital library. This can be included in that as the observations. So, just like India has Ayurveda, there are many systems across the world, traditional medicine systems, which was again discussed in the same article. China's Zongai system is just like Ayurveda. They have their own system. Even Arabia had their own system. In the same article, a lot of medicinal plants which were discussed. Sarpagandha, Chavanprash, aloe vera. All of this can be important because UPSC has a tendency of picking up from these articles. I'll be giving these notes, but you're not expected to by heart everything like randomly. Observe what was asked, pick up those patterns and focus on those patterns. I hope you like this class and it gives you a context to prepare this random topics of biodiversity. You have to get your basics right. This is what I've expected you to do before this class, the basics which were discussed in the organization of PYQs, etc. After that is done, we have discussed the current affairs also in the same format. I hope that gives you a structure to this entire topic. Any doubts, guys?
No, sir.
Great. So I hope you enjoyed the session and we'll catch up soon again. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.